The ice planet Zarian 7 stretched endlessly white beneath Elena Vasquez's damaged rescue shuttle. Warning lights painted her weathered face red as she fought the controls. Beacon she'd been sent to investigate had gone silent 3 days ago, but Federation protocol demanded she search until her fuel ran dry. Through the swirling snow, twisted metal caught her eye. Not one crash site, but two. Her heart raced as she spotted movement near the larger wreckage, a ship design she'd never seen before. The hull bore strange markings that seemed to pulse with fading energy. Elena's shuttle hit the ice harder than planned. Throwing her against the restraints, steam hissed from ruptured coolant lines as she grabbed her emergency kit and thermal gear. The temperature readings made her blood chill, 40 degrees below zero and dropping fast. Without shelter, nothing survived more than an hour on XER Ion-7. She trudged through knee-deep snow toward the movement she'd spotted. What she found defied everything she knew about first contact protocols. A tall, humanoid figure knelt beside the alien wreckage, his deep blue skin marked with silver patterns that seemed to shift in the dim light. For arms worked desperately at a sealed panel, while crystalline formations along his spine flickered weakly. The alien, Kethver, though she wouldn't learn his name for days, looked up as her shadow fell across him. His large violet eyes held intelligence and pain in equal measure. Green blood seeped from a gash across his chest, freezing in the bitter air. He spoke in a musical language that sounded like wind chimes, gesturing frantically at his ship. Elena held up her hands, showing she meant no harm. The universal translator on her belt caught fragments, something about others, about time running out. But when she stepped closer, Kethver collapsed, his forearms going limp in the snow. His breathing came in shallow gasps that created tiny ice clouds. Training took over. Elena checked his pulse, alien though it was, and found it rapid but weak. His skin felt like touching warm marble, far too cold for survival. Without thinking about regulations or first contact procedures, she began applying pressure bandages. To his wounds, his blood was strange, almost luminescent, but it bled the same as any injured being. The storm intensified around them, howling winds threatening to bury them both. Elena made a decision that would change everything.
She activated
Her emergency beacon. Then began the difficult task of dragging Kethvar toward a rocky outcropping she'd spotted during her descent. His considerable height made the task exhausting, but adrenaline and stubborn determination drove her forward as she pulled him through the snow. Kethvar's eyes fluttered open. He looked at her with confusion, then something that might have been gratitude. His hand, larger than hers, with elongated fingers, briefly touched her arm, even through her thermal gloves. She felt warmth and a strange tingling sensation. The rocky shelter provided minimal protection, but Elena worked quickly to set up her emergency thermal generator. Examined Kethvar's wounds. Whatever had happened to his ship, he'd taken a severe beating. Yet as she worked, she noticed something remarkable. Where her hands had touched his injuries, the healing seemed accelerated. The luminescent blood clotting faster than should have been possible. Kethvar watched her with those incredible violet eyes, occasionally speaking in his musical language. Elena found herself responding, knowing he couldn't understand her words, but hoping her tone conveyed safety and care. When she offered him water from her supplies, he hesitated before accepting, their fingers touching briefly as he took the container. 3 days into the storm, their temporary shelter had become a world unto itself. Elena had managed to extend the thermal generator's range using components salvaged from both crashed ships, and the alien technology fascinated her. Its crystalline circuits somehow compatible with her equipment when properly integrated. Kethvar recovered quickly, his species apparently more resilient than humans. Elena learned his name when he pointed to himself repeatedly while speaking a flowing sequence of sounds. When she tried to repeat it, his face showed what she interpreted as amusement. She taught him her name in return, watching as he practiced. The unfamiliar syllables with careful precision. Communication evolved through necessity. Lena sketched diagrams in the frost on the shelter walls, showing star maps and basic concepts. Kethvar responded by creating three-dimensional light patterns with small devices from his belt. holographic representations that told stories she was beginning to understand. His people were explorers, scientists seeking new worlds and knowledge. On the fourth day, the storm finally broke. Alina ventured outside to assess their situation, while Kethfer remained in the shelter, still recovering from his injuries. The landscape revealed itself in stunning beauty, crystal formations rising from the ice, like frozen flowers. But beauty wouldn't save them. Her shuttle's communication array was completely destroyed, and his ship was beyond repair. When she returned, with the grim news, Kethfer surprised her. Using the light patterns he'd shown her before, he indicated a direction across the ice fields. Alina studied his holographic display and realized what he was showing her, an automated beacon station. Marked on both their navigation systems, it would be a dangerous journey, but it represented their only hope of rescue. They spent the evening preparing, combining their supplies, and planning the route. Alina found herself watching Kethfer as he worked, noting the graceful way his four arms moved independently, each performing different tasks with perfect coordination. His crystalline spine formations pulsed gently in rhythm with his breathing, creating patterns she was learning to read as emotional states. That night, huddled together for warmth as the temperature dropped again, Alina felt something shifting between them. Kethfer had positioned himself so his larger frame shielded her from the cold. When she shivered, despite the thermal generator, he carefully wrapped one of his arms around her shoulders. Sharing his body heat, the contact sent unexpected warmth through her entire body. His skin, no longer cold from injury and exposure, felt smooth and warm with an almost electric quality that made her pulse quicken. Alina found herself relaxing against him, her head resting against his chest, where she could hear the dual rhythm of what she assumed were two hearts beating in complex harmony. Kethfer made a soft sound, almost like purring, and she felt vibrations through his chest that seemed to calm her racing thoughts. His free hand traced gentle patterns in the air above her, creating soft light displays that were beautiful and somehow soothing. Alina realized he was sharing something personal, perhaps a lullaby or meditation from his culture. When she looked up at his face, their eyes met and held. Despite their different species, something passed between them that transcended language barriers. Alina found herself reaching up to touch the silver patterns on his cheek, feeling them shift and warm under her fingertips. Kethfer's breathing deepened, and his spine crystals pulsed with warmer, brighter colors. The moment stretched between them, filled with possibilities and questions neither could voice. Alina felt her heart racing as Kethfer's hand covered hers, where it rested against his face. His touch was gentle, but sure, and she could see her own wonder reflected in his violet eyes. Tomorrow, they would begin the dangerous journey to the beacon. Tonight, they discovered that connection could bloom even between species that had never known of each other's existence. The journey across Zarian 7's frozen wasteland tested them both beyond their limits. Alina's portable scanner indicated they were making good progress toward the beacon station. But the terrain grew more treacherous with each passing hour. Crystalline formations jutted from the ice like frozen lightning, creating a maze they had to navigate carefully. Kethfer proved to be an ideal traveling companion. His four arms allowed him to carry equipment while helping Alina navigate the more difficult passages. When they encountered a crevasse too wide to jump, he used his natural strength to lower her down safely with improvised ropes, then followed, with graceful leaps that showcased his species' superior agility. During rest periods, their communication continued to evolve. Alina taught him basic human words while learning his musical language. She discovered his name meant Starseeker in his tongue, fitting for someone whose ship had been on a deep space exploration mission. When she told him her name meant bright, light in old Earth languages. His spine crystals pulsed with warm golden patterns she was learning meant happiness or approval. On their third day of travel, they encountered their first real danger. A pack of ice wolves, native predators with crystalline fangs and translucent fur, surrounded them while they were setting up camp. Alina reached for her emergency weapon, but Kethfer stepped forward, spreading all four arms wide. Alina watched in amazement as he began to sing. his voice creating harmonics that seemed impossible for any throat to produce. The wolves stopped their advance, heads tilted as if listening. The crystalline formations on Kethfer's spine began resonating with his voice, creating patterns of light that danced across the ice. Slowly, the pack backed away and disappeared into the swirling snow. That night, Alina found herself studying Kethfer with new eyes. "You communicate with them?" she said, not really asking. He nodded, then used his light patterns to show her images of his homeworld, where his people lived in harmony with creatures far stranger than ice wolves. "Your world sounds beautiful," Alina said softly. Kethfer created an image of swirling, purple skies and floating crystal cities, then looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. He spoke in his musical language, and though she didn't understand all the words, his tone conveyed sadness and longing. Alina moved closer to him, drawn by an impulse she didn't fully understand. "You miss home." When he nodded, she reached out to touch his hand. "So do I. But maybe we can find something good in being lost together." Kethfer's large hand enveloped hers, his elongated fingers intertwining with hers in a way that felt surprisingly natural. His skin was warm now, fully recovered from his injuries, and she could feel a subtle energy flowing between them. He brought her hand to his chest. She felt both his hearts beating in that complex rhythm she'd grown to love. Their faces were close now. Close enough that Alina could see her reflection in his violet eyes. She wondered what he saw when he looked at her, this small human with her strange single heart and limited arms. But the way his crystals pulsed with soft, warm light told her that whatever he saw, he found it beautiful. The kiss, when it came, was gentle and exploratory. His lips were softer than she'd expected, and there was a subtle sweetness to his breath that reminded her of spring flowers. The contact sent electricity through her entire body, and she felt his crystals brighten. In response, when they broke apart, both were breathing heavily. Kethfer spoke her name like a prayer, his voice filled with wonder. Alina reached up to trace the silver patterns on his face, watching them shift and swirl under her touch. "I don't know how this is possible," she whispered, "but I'm falling in love with you." Though he couldn't understand all her words, Kethfer responded by creating the most beautiful light display she'd ever seen. Colors and patterns that spoke of devotion and hope and dreams of a future together. The beacon station emerged from the ice like a metal flower, its communication array reaching toward the stars. Alina felt relief wash over her as they approached the automated facility, but also a growing dread about what rescue would mean for her relationship with Kethfer. The station's systems responded to Elena's Federation codes, powering up with mechanical precision, sent out distress signals on multiple frequencies, while Kethfer used his own technology to contact his people. Within hours, they received responses from both their respective fleets. Rescue ships already en route to their position. Captain Torres arrived first, his Federation vessel touching down with military efficiency. Alina felt Kethfer tense beside her as armed soldiers emerged from the ship, their weapons trained cautiously on the alien who had become everything to her. She stepped protectively in front of him, her hand finding his in a gesture that spoke volumes. "Stand down, Rodriguez," Captain Torres commanded his sergeant. "Dr. Vasquez, are you injured? Has this alien harmed you in any way?" His weathered face showed concern mixed with suspicion as he studied Kethfer's towering form. "His name is Kethfer," Alina said firmly. "He saved my life, Torres. Without him, I would have died in the storm." She felt Kethfer's hand squeeze, hers gently offering support even though he couldn't understand the rapid conversation in Standard. Torres noticed their joined hands, his expression growing troubled. "Alina, I need to debrief you privately. Federation protocols regarding first contact are very specific, especially when it involves potential contamination or undue influence." The words hit Alina like a physical blow. Contamination? Captain? This man is a person, not a disease. He's intelligent, kind, and gentle. He's also the reason we're both alive to have this conversation. Before Torres could respond, another ship descended from the cloudy sky, its design flowing and organic like grown crystal rather than manufactured metal. Kethfer's people had arrived. Alina watched as beings similar to Kethfer emerged, her spine crystals pulsing in complex patterns that she recognized as a form of communication. the leader, taller than Kethver, with more pronounced crystalline formations, approached with cautious dignity. When Kethver spoke to his people in their musical language, Alina caught her name several times. She saw surprise ripple through the alien group, their crystals shifting to colors she didn't recognize. "This complicates things," Torres muttered. "Alina, we need to separate you two for proper debriefing. There are procedures to follow, health screenings to conduct. We can't risk contamination of either species." Alina felt her heart breaking as she realized what was happening. The two rescue teams were already positioning themselves defensively, humans and aliens eyeing each other with wary suspicion. In the middle stood she and Kethver. Their love suddenly transformed into a diplomatic incident. Kethver seemed to understand the situation even without knowing the words being spoken. He turned to Alina, his violet eyes filled with pain and determination. Creating one of his light displays, he showed her images of the two of them together, then gestured toward both ships, his expression questioning. "Choose," Alina whispered, understanding what he was asking. "You want me to choose?" She looked at Torres, at the Federation ship that represented her career, her people, everything she'd known. Then she looked at Kethver, at the alien who had become the center of her universe in just a few short days. "I choose love," she said loudly enough for both groups to hear. She stepped closer to Kethver, placing both hands on his chest, where she could feel his dual heartbeat. "I choose him." The crystalline patterns on Kethver's spine blazed with brilliant light as he understood her decision. He wrapped all four arms around her, lifting her gently as he spoke rapid words to his people. Lena didn't need translation to understand he was making the same choice she had. Torres stepped forward, his face grim. "Alina, think about what you're doing. You have a career, a life, a species waiting for you. This alien attraction is likely some form of biological influence. Come back to the ship and we'll sort this out." Alina looked at him with steady eyes. "My choice is made, Captain, but this doesn't have to end in conflict. We could be the bridge between our peoples instead of the cause of division." As if summoned by her words, both rescue teams received simultaneous communications from their respective command structures. Alina watched Torres' face change as he listened to his earpiece. While the alien leader's crystals shifted to new patterns of apparent surprise, something bigger than their personal situation was unfolding, and their love story was about to become the catalyst for something unprecedented. 3 months later, Alina stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, a newly constructed diplomatic outpost in neutral space. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she watched ships from dozens of species dock at the expanding facility. What had begun as a rescue mission had evolved into the foundation of an unprecedented interstellar alliance. Kethver approached from behind, his forearms carrying data tablets and communication devices. His crystalline spine formations pulsed, with the warm golden patterns Alina had learned meant contentment and love. "The Andromedan delegation has agreed to the cultural exchange program," he said, in the careful standard he'd been learning. "Your translation protocols are working better than expected." Alina turned to face him, still marveling at how natural it felt to be with him, despite their obvious differences. Over the past months, they'd undergone extensive medical examinations that proved their relationship posed no biological dangers to either species. More importantly, they've demonstrated that emotional bonds could transcend evolutionary barriers. "Ambassador Torres sends her compliments on the new housing modules," Alina said, scrolling through her own messages. The captain, who had once viewed their relationship with suspicion, now served as one of their strongest advocates. "The Federation Council has approved permanent funding for Harmony Station." Their work as cultural ambassadors had proven invaluable. Elena's human intuition, combined with Kethver's empathic abilities, allowed them to facilitate communication between species that had never imagined peaceful coexistence possible. They'd prevented 3 potential conflicts through careful mediation and helped establish trade relationships that benefited everyone involved. Kethver set down his tablets and moved closer to Alina, its larger form creating a comfortable shadow around her. "The Zealothi youth group wants to know if we'll attend their bonding ceremony next week. They credit our story with inspiring their interclan peace accord." Alina laughed softly, leaning back against his chest, where she could feel the dual rhythm of his hearts. We've become quite the sensation, haven't we? The human and the Starseeker who chose love over protocol. Do you regret it? Kethfer asked, his voice carrying undertones of uncertainty that his crystals echoed in muted colors. Your career, your life among your own people? Alina turned in his arms, reaching up to touch the silver patterns on his face that had become as familiar as her own reflection. How could I regret finding my soulmate? Besides, we're building something here that's bigger than either of our old lives. Their lips met in a kiss that had lost none of its electric intensity over the months. Alina felt the subtle energy that always flowed between them, a connection that seemed to exist on levels beyond the merely physical. When they broke apart, both were glowing softly. Alina, with the borrowed luminescence that Kethfer's touch always awakened in her, and Kethfer, with the brilliant patterns that spoke of complete happiness. The bonding ceremony, Alina said softly, looking up into his violet eyes. The Zealothi are asking because they see something in us that represents hope for their future. Kethfer nodded, understanding her meaning. Over their months together, they'd discussed their own future many times, but always in abstract terms. The reality of their different biologies, their different lifespans, and the political implications had seemed too complex to navigate. Have been researching human bonding customs, Kethfer said carefully, and sharing our traditions with you. Perhaps it is time we created new traditions that honor both our peoples. Alina felt her heart race as she understood what he was suggesting. A bonding ceremony of our own. His spine crystals blazed with brilliant light as he nodded. If you would have me as your life partner, I would be honored to stand with you before all our friends and allies. Through the station's communication systems, Lini could hear the sounds of a dozen different species working together, their various languages blending into a symphony of cooperation. Outside the windows, ships continued to arrive, bringing new ambassadors, new opportunities for peace, and new hope for the future. Yes, Alina said, her voice filled with certainty and joy. Yes. I'll bind my life to yours, Kethfer of the deep stars. As they held each other in the growing light of multiple suns, Alina reflected on the journey that had brought them here. A crashed ship, a desperate rescue. And the courage to choose love over fear had created ripples that now touched countless lives across the galaxy. Their love story had become legend. But more importantly, it had become proof that connection and understanding could bloom anywhere. Between anyone willing to see beyond surface differences to the heart that beat beneath, in the distance, new ships approached Harmony Station carrying beings they had yet to meet. Stories they had yet to hear, and possibilities they had yet to imagine. Alina and Kethfer would greet them together as partners, ambassadors, and living proof that love truly was the universal language.